Start, sir.
Very good evening to one and all present in this today's webinar. Hope you all are well during pandemic this situation. Respected resource person on the occasion, CMA Eddie Wadhwa sir and Dr. S.K. Gupta sir, Chairman of South Odisha Chapter, CGK Chapter, Raurkela Chapter, Talcher Orangul Chapter, Sambalpur Chapter and their team members, past Chairman of the Chapter and EIRC, past President and CCM of the Institute, Regional Council members of ICAI, EIRC and stakeholders, Chairman of the Chapter CMA Mukesh Chobe, Secretary of the Chapter CMA Ajay Kumar Samal, and all my professional colleagues in the Managing Committee. ICMA Shaktidhar Singh, Chairman PD Committee of the Chapter, warmly welcome you all to the today's webinar on the theme Changing Dimension of Internal Audit. It's my privilege to introduce the guest on today's occasion. For that, I would like to request Mr. Tusharanjan Mahanti to play Institute Anthem. Thank you all. Now it is time to welcome and introduce today's resource persons. I heartily welcome you, sir, on behalf of the Managing Committee of Bhubaneswar Chapter and all the chapters of Odisha. Sri Ajay, CMA Ajay Wadhwa sir, by profession, is a cost accountant and a fellow member of ICMI and presently working at Central Coal Fields Limited, CCL. He is a visiting faculty of ICAI, ICAI CMA, ICSI, RTI CAG, ICM, IMT Nagpur, XLRI, St. Xavier's College, MTI CCL, MTI CEL, MTI CMPDI, etc. He has written many books on cost accounting standards and motivation. He is a past chairman of Eastern India Regional Council of ICAI, now ICAI. He is a secretary, Jharkhand State Productive Council and past president of Rotary Club of Ranchi. He was awarded with Best CMA of the country in 2016. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Now, Dr. S.K. Gupta, sir. Dr. S.K. Gupta is a past postgraduate in commerce, gold medalist, FCS, MCMA, PhD, corporate governance, with over 40 years of corporate experience in leadership position with various public and private sector. Dr. Gupta sir is currently Managing Director of the Registered Valuers Organization of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. He is a prolific writer and written over 150 articles and research papers in the domains of IBC, finance, management accounting, strategic management, corporate reporting, corporate governance, sustainability, integrity reporting, corporate restructuring, corporate laws, which are regularly published in various professional journals. He has also conducted management development programs, both open programs and in-house for various companies. Dr. Gupta sir plays flute. He has released an album of songs and versions played by him on flute. Thank you, sir, for
Thank
accepting
you.
our invitation. Thank you, sir. Now, without taking much of time, I request our young chairman, CMA Mukesh Chobe, to address. Over to Mukesh Chobe.
Thank you, Shakti sir. A namaskar to all present in today's virtual platform.
Namaskar.
I CMA Mukesh Chaube, Chairman of Bhubaneswar Chapter, feel fortunate to welcome you all again to today's WEBINT on changing dimensions of internal audit, organized by Bhubaneswar Chapter in association with all other chapters at Odisha. My sincere thanks and insightful gratitude on behalf of the Management Committee of Bhubaneswar Chapter to the respected resource person on the occasion, CMA Ajay Wadhwa sir and CMA Dr. S.K.Gupta sir for accepting our invitation. Thank you, sir. Esteemed CMA participants and stakeholders, chairman and their team members of other chapters at Odisha. My dear CMA Ajay Kumar Samal, Active Secretary of the chapter, and CMA Shakti Singh sir, Chairman PD Committee, and other professional colleagues in the managing committee and staffs. I once again heartily welcome you all. As today's resource person are part and parcel of our CMA fraternity, they might have been known about Bhubaneswar chapter and its activities. Just for the information, I can proudly say Bhubaneswar chapter is providing professional service since 1969, sir, and already bagged a 22nd times Best Chapter Award from our institute, and only chapter pan India for receiving CMA Brand Building Award for its visibility activities. It's only due to the contribution of our stalwarts and we the members working hard as team to materialize the dreams of our predecessors. Dear friend, world has changed. Risk profile of organizations has changed and stakeholders' expectations have also changed. So we professionals should also be changed and acquaint ourselves with the changing scenario. In view of that, chapter has organized this particular webinar in the theme Changing Dimensions of Internal Audit. Today we have with us two eminent resource person, Dr. S.K. Gupta sir and Ajay Wadhwa sir. Let's listen from them and hope this will be a very much educative session for all of us. I wish and pray before Lord Jagannath for keeping all of us healthy and safe during this pandemic situation. Thanking you all. Wish you a Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year in advance. Jai Jagannath.
Thank you.
Thank you, CMA Mukesh Chobe, Chairman of Bhubaneswar Chapter. Now, I would like to request CMA CS Dr. S.K. Gupta sir, Managing Director, RBO, the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Sir, kindly address. Over to Gupta sir.
Good evening, namaskar.
Namaskar,
I'm
sir.
extremely thankful to the Bhubaneswar chapter and all other chapters of Odisha to have invited me for sharing my thoughts and perspective on this particular topic of changing dimensions of internal audit. I'm extremely thankful to all the participants who have decided to join this webinar so as to make this interaction very, very fruitful. Well, as the chairman of the chapter also mentioned right now, Mr. Mukesh, that the world is changing and it is changing at a very, very significant pace. It's not only on account of COVID-19 pandemic that I'm talking about. Even without and even prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the world has seen devastatingly significant changes, at least in the past few decades, maybe at least in the past couple of decades. The business world today is a VUCA world. It is highly vulnerable, highly uncertain, very, very complex, and extremely ambiguous. This makes the business world a very, very challenging place where people are required to conduct their business and to carry on their business on a sustainable basis, growing and creating value for the stakeholders in future. Let's see some of the elements which are making this business environment very, very dynamic. What is changing? What has changed over the period of last few years? This will provide kind of a backdrop or a premise because we are talking about changing dimensions of internal audit. So first we have to understand what are the changes taking place in the backdrop or the environment, and then how should internal auditor prepare himself so as to deliver value as per the expectation of various stakeholders for internal audit. The first element is that we are looking at very, very disruptive business models which have changed the rules of the business game. Just to give a few examples, we are today living in a world where the world's largest travel car company does not own a single car. The answer is Uber. We live in a world where the world's largest travel lodging company does not own a single hotel room, Airbnb. We live in a world where the world's largest retailer does not own a single brick and mortar store, Amazon. These are very, very disruptive business models, unheard of till about a few decades back. But what is the performance or operational feasibility of these businesses and these ventures? Many of such businesses with disruptive business models have profitless turnover. They have a great top line, they have a good enough turnover, but end of the day, there is no profit. Or they may have cashless profit. They have a good enough bottom line, but end of the day, there is no liquidity or there is no cash in the business. But when you look at the valuation of these companies, skyrocketing like anything. Valuation is very, very high in spite of their business bleeding like anything, incurring huge losses year after year, but nonetheless, their valuations are skyrocketing. And there is a beeline of investors, private equity, angel investors who are willing to put their money into these kind of disruptive business models. Technology has greatly transformed the way we live and we work in organizations. Internet, WhatsApp, social media, artificial intelligence, blockchain, data analytics, machine learning, all these have improved our analytical abilities to a significant extent, and to that extent, they have facilitated decision making as managers in the business. Demographic shifts are taking place which are reshaping societies and the workforce. In many of the companies, many of the new emerging businesses, we have millennials who form majority of the workforce with a different culture, with a different mindset, with different expectations from the workplace. That's posing to be a great challenge before the businesses. The wave of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, LPG, has changed the rules of business across all markets in the world. Today, we are looking at world as a complete market. And that's why we say the globalization has been a very, very impactful incident in the history of the global businesses. The expectations of the customers are changing. They want everything faster, everything better, everything more differentiated, and everything personalized than before. We have probably moved away from the concept of customer satisfaction, which was only concerned with providing as per the expectations of the customers. Now we are moving on to the concept of customer delight, where a customer needs to be delighted. He's expecting to be delighted by way of providing more than his expectations from the product or from the services. Climate change has had a huge environmental impact the world over. Corporate social responsibility. That means business uses a lot of resources of the society, and therefore they have a moral responsibility of giving it back to the society so that we are able to at least leave the planet for future generation in the same shape in which we inherited it. But I think more than CSR, what is important today is ISR, that is individual social responsibility. All of us has got to assume the responsibility of being socially responsible citizens of any country of this planet, so that global movement will ultimately make possible the realization of the concept of triple P, which is we should look at profits, we should also be looking at people, how the business is impacting societies and groups of people. And we should also be looking at planet, to what extent are we either degrading or positively contributing towards protecting the environment for the future. This is the kind of backdrop that we have of the businesses the world over in which the businesses today operate. So what is an audit? Anytime you talk about audit, whether it is cost audit or management audit or statutory audit or internal audit, it's basically a review, it's basically a relook, it is basically kind of a scrutiny of the organization's various activities to determine if the organization is doing what it says it is doing. Every company has a vision, then the company has a mission, and then there are objectives, and then there are different functions and activities which make possible realization of the corporate objectives, ultimately leading to mission and vision accomplishment. So we got to make sure from time to time whether company is actually doing what it is supposed to be doing as per its charter, that's as per the memorandum of association of the company, or as per the vision laid down by the promoters or owners of the company. Is the company sticking around to its core function, delivering value, creating value, preserving value, and enhancing value going forward over a period of time or not? And for that, we carry out the scrutiny, and then we use the word audit. Internal audit, more specifically, is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations efficiency. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes. So that's the core basic conceptual definition, conceptual meaning of the word internal audit. It's not carried out by an external agency. When you have external consultants carrying out internal audit, or you can also have an internal team carrying out the function of internal audit. They can be two models, but nonetheless, it is an audit conducted with a view to finding out whether various activities and functions of the organization are being carried out efficiently or not. Is there scope for improvement in terms of their effectiveness and productivity? How well is the company able to identify the risk and manage the risk strategically? What are the internal control features? Are internal controls existing in the organization? Not enough. Are internal controls actually operating as intended? Not enough. Is actually internal control being effective in regulating various activities and functions of the organization? That's also what has got to be looked into. And then, of course, the broader perspective of governance issues. How well is the company governed? Corporate governance today is becoming the center and focal point of various organizations concerned and deliberations in the board meetings. Because it is known, it's a fact now, that's been proved by the research, that companies which have solid, robust, structured governance mechanisms are able to carry a premium in the marketplace in terms of their brand, in terms of their shares, in terms of their market cap, in terms of their overall revenues and the turnover. They have a premium because of their good governance practices. So internal audit is an all-encompassing activity which looks at, reviews, scrutinizes from time to time all these functions and activities with a view to improving internal controls, ensuring statutory compliances, ensuring effective risk management, ensuring effective internal control, and that the company has a robust and structured governance process in place. Internal audit is mandated. It's required to be there mandatorily for certain companies as per the Companies Act 2013. But then on a voluntary basis, any company can decide to have a structure of internal audit to carry out scrutiny and review of its various functions and activities and processes from time to time. Internal audit can therefore contribute very significantly to the success of the organization. And it can also be very effective in managing the governance aspect, the risk management aspect, and the internal control aspect of the company. But to be impactful and to be really useful for the company, the operations of internal audit department, right from internal audit strategy to internal audit philosophy to internal audit plans to internal audit activities, everything should be aligned with the strategies and objectives of the organization. Because end of the day, internal audit is not an isolated standalone function. Its function and activities ultimately have to contribute to the achievement of the organizational objectives and vision and mission. And therefore, obviously, this needs to be aligned. This needs to be kept aligned at all the times in sync with the organizational objectives and vision. Internal auditors who focus on the country's or the company's highest risk areas and perform their services effectively with thorough planning, with adequately resourceful, knowledgeable, skillful internal audit team members will be able to deliver good results in the entire process of internal audit. Well, everyone says, yes, we understand what is the importance of internal audit. Every company's board also understands what is so special about internal audit. PricewaterhouseCoopers conducted a research the world over in 2019, and some of the findings I'm sharing here with you on this slide. Many internal audit functions are not keeping pace with the kind of changes which are taking place in the environment, in the backdrop of the business. That's what PwC survey shows. Then further it goes on to add that 79% of the board members of various companies the world over, they acknowledge the significant value that internal audit can add to their functions and operations. But in fact, only 56% consider the performance of internal audit to be strong. That means there is a gap between the expectations of the board from the internal auditors and the delivery of value or delivery of functional effectiveness on the part of internal auditors. That means they are wanting something more. Their expectation is more from the internal auditor in terms of adding value, creating value for the organizations. The consensus in the survey seems to be that internal audit needs to step outside of its traditional comfort zone and contribute to the organization in a more meaningful way. That's why we have chosen this topic for today's WEBINT. It's not only internal audit we are going to talk about in terms of concept, process, and function, but rather we are looking at what are the changing dimensions. What is that is required to change on the part of internal auditor to be effective and to be able to add value to the organizational function. And therefore, PwC service says that you got to come out of your comfort zone, ditch the traditional ways of carrying out internal audit, leave aside traditional areas of audit, but approach the internal audit in a more proactive, in a more proactive, in a more scientific, in a more rational, and in a more effective manner. How do we do that? I'll share some of my thoughts and perspective in subsequent slides. So the business focus is changing. When you look at the focus of businesses, rather than only looking at maximization of profits, maximization of wealth, which is normally the first chapter in every book on financial management, rather people are today looking at creating value for the stakeholders. They are looking at the concepts of economic value added. They are looking at the concepts of looking at a balanced scorecard. It's not only financial performance that matters, but how the company's operations are impacting the society, impacting the environment, and how do we balance out the triple P, people, planet, and profits. Nobody is saying throw away the profit concept, because unless the company is able to make a reasonable, fair return on its capital, it will not be able to survive or sustain in the market for a long time. That's very, very essential. But then concern about people, concern about planet has to be part of your DNA. It has to form part of every project evaluation. It has to be part of every decision that a manager takes in a given organization. So the landscape of internal audit has also required to change in line with the changes taking place in the business environment and the business world. Internal audit is at a crossroad. It has to focus on value agenda. They can create their value, they can enhance their stature, they would be looked upon as kind of very, very useful and valuable resources for any company if they focus on business value agenda, centering around people, products, processes, profitability, and planet. The entire spectrum of internal audit plans, the entire philosophy of internal audit has to center and revolve around these 5 different components, 5 different P's. You got to be looking at people, products, processes, profitability, and planet. So the board of directors of various companies today, what is their expectation and how their expectations are changing over a period of time? Let's have a look at some of the bullet points. The board is expecting internal auditors to assist them in identification, monitoring, and management of business risks. There can be very, very different types of risks. You can have financial risk, you can have product risk, you can have technology risk, you can have country risk, you can have economy risk. There can be various different types of risk. Obviously, it is important for every company to first be able to identify what are the kind of risks that the business is exposed to. And for that, you got to build what is called a risk register or probably a risk library. Once you have been able to identify the various risks, then comes the next question: how do we manage them? Well, some of the risks may be managed, some of the risks may not be even able to management at all, because these might be absolutely external over which no one single company can have any kind of control. In that case, the company has to decide and to look at what is the risk appetite that the company has and how can we most effectively strategically manage the risk of the company. And there, internal auditor can play a very, very crucial and vital role in risk mapping, risk identification, risk management of the entire company. They are also required to offer insight and advice on enterprise risk management, ERM, provide assurance on internal controls. So internal auditor has to check whether the company has internal controls in place or not. Second thing that is required to be looked at is those internal controls which are in place, are they actually operating or not? Third thing that they got to look is those internal controls which are existing in the company and they are operating. Third question to ask is, are they operating effectively or not? Once you carry out this 3-step process to check the efficacy and effectiveness of internal control, only then probably you can give a view or an assurance to the board of the company that whether internal controls in the company are effective or not. It is very important for the internal auditors to step outside of its traditional role and function and also look at the dimensions and aspects of organizational culture and ethics and code of conduct. All listed companies are required to have a code of conduct as mandated by SEBI and listed agreement with the stock exchanges. They have all it over in the notice board of the company, in the facilities, in the admin block, and they have it hosted also on the website of the company. But that's probably only complying with the regulations and law. What is important is living the code of conduct. You got to make sure that all your employees, they live the code of conduct, and that can happen only through continuous training, continuous communication with the people, continuous communication with the staff all the time to make sure that they understand what is the code of conduct and they actually make it part of their DNA in every decision and every action that they take within the organization. you got to keep evaluating efficiency and effectiveness of various operations of the company from time to time. You got to obviously check compliance with laws and regulations, which is part of the statutory compliance function of the internal audit to check. You also got to make sure reliability of financial and management reporting. To what extent the reports which are going to the management are reliable, whether they are timely, whether they are being generated in a format which is user-friendly, and whether the reports can be relied upon both by internal as well as external users. Internal auditors also need to ensure safeguarding of the tangible as well as intangible assets of the company. Reputation, very, very important to look at. The company's reputation, its brand value, its brand loyalty, its customer satisfaction. These are intangible assets that the company possesses. The internal auditor, besides carrying out a physical check of the fixed assets of the company, also got to be carefully looking at how to protect and safeguard the assets of the company, both tangible and intangible. Effective performance management system for the company and the kind of controls which are existing are also very much going to be high on the agenda of the internal auditors as per the board's expectations. Mergers and acquisitions, climate change, sustainability. United Nations has come out with Sustainability Development Goals 2030. Each country is committed to ensure achievement of those sustainability development goals, and within the country thereafter, the responsibility falls on the shoulders of each corporate to ensure that they are working in sync with the requirements of SDG 2030. Internal auditors also act as kind of advisors to the board in terms of looking at cost management, cost optimization, cost rationalization, look at waste reduction, look at productivity and process improvement. This is the whole canvas of expectations of the board from the internal auditors in today's changing world. So what can internal audit do in order to change their stance, change their approach and strategy and techniques so that their expectations are aligned with the expectations of the board? What is that internal auditor needs to do? First slide, previous slide was, what is the expectation of the board from the internal auditor? And now we're going to talk about how and what can internal audit do in order to align its operations and philosophy with that of the board's expectation. Develop internal audit strategy with focus on optimizing risks, costs, and value. This should be the key agenda of any internal auditor. You got to develop a risk-centric mindset so as to help the enterprise navigate the complicated risk landscape. You got to move beyond cyclical auditing. You have to be looking at development of flexible and dynamic internal audit plans. You know, the traditional way of drawing up an internal audit calendar is you draw out a plan. This quarter, I'm going to cover purchase, stores, quality control. Next quarter, I'm going to cover these three areas. I think we got to move beyond that. Beyond cyclical auditing, our internal audit plans have got to be flexible and they got to be dynamic all the time so that we can take care of any new area which might become important and critical with the changing time, quarter to quarter, year to year. We must have flexible, dynamic, rolling internal audit plans. We must communicate and maintain open lines of communication with all stakeholders. Stakeholders of internal audit, that's what I'm talking about. You got to maintain open lines of communication with all your stakeholders so as to identify what are their needs, what is that they want, because yours is a support function. So you got to support the stakeholders. You got to make sure that you understand what are their needs, what are their expectations, and are they satisfied with kind of delivery that you're providing to them or not. Then, of course, you got to be fairly strong in use of technology. You must leverage technology to optimize and make your internal audit more effective. You got to ensure that the company is able to develop with your expertise, with your advice, a comprehensive performance management framework. You must develop ability to connect the dots. You got to be a business value leader. I mean, the future of internal audit lies here. You got to understand the whole business, the macro environment within which the company is functioning, and then coming down to industry scenario, then coming down at the firm level. You got to have the ability to be able to connect all the dots. One important thing for internal auditors to keep in mind all the time is to keep your report very, very simple. Keep it simple and straight. Cut out the clutter, because ultimately your report doesn't need to be a fancy report with high sounding words, with high sounding graphs and charts and things like that, but it should be simple enough so as to add value to the understanding of the users of your report. That's the basic objective of coming out with a fairly reliable and a strategic internal audit report. Auditors are not supposed to be watchdogs. They are supposed to be watchdogs and not bloodhounds. Similarly here, instead of only pointing out deficiencies, instead of only pointing out mistakes of various people within the organization, you got to probably develop a mindset where you catch the manager doing something better, something right, and then recommend a recognition or some award to be given to that person so as to bring about a positive reinforcement, so that this practice, this best practice gets replicated elsewhere, and ultimately the entire organization benefits. Instead of looking at traditional ways of carrying out audit, you got to be looking at process audit, internal audit based upon a process audit approach, where you look at each one of the processes, because outcome is dependent upon the input. What kind of inputs you put into the entire process? You carry out different activities, and then these all ultimately result in the final productivity, the final product, or the final outcome. You got to make sure that business processes are improved over a period of time, of course, slowly, following the concept of Zen taken out from the Japanese management principle. You also got to make sure that you help the company, you help the board in strengthening good corporate governance practices. The key pillars of good corporate governance practices are accountability, fairness, transparency, independence. All these aspects need to be given due focus by the internal auditors of future. So you got to unlock the strategic value of internal audit. Internal audit must offer business insights, and they must offer ideas that challenge existing practices and lead to ongoing and sustainable business performance improvements for maximizing stakeholder value. Unless you improve, you might improve in a very, very small manner, one step at a time, Kaizen. But nonetheless, there has to be an attempt to improve each and every function, each and every aspect of the organization, even though slowly, even though small iota, but then it has to be a continuous process to be carried out within the organization. What is required to be able to do what is mentioned in the previous slide is that you got to transform yourself. The way we have transformed ourselves in a period of last about 8 months during and post-COVID situation, many of us have learned new ways to have virtual meetings on Zoom, Google Meet, and all those platforms. We have learned new ways of carrying out WEBINTs and webinars. We have learned new ways to live our life and work in the organization. Similarly, internal auditors need to rise to a new floor. They got to have a new benchmark set for themselves, and they got to be actually working towards building up a new space for their own function. What are the 3 key steps for this transformation that internal auditors have to make amongst themselves? You got to link your agenda and your planning to business value agenda. It can't be deviating from the business value agenda. It has to be focused on centering around the agenda of business value. You got to make a business case for change. Those businesses which don't innovate, which are not creative, which are not thinking out of the box, they will stand still. They will not be able to grow in future. They will not be able to sustain in the future. What you need today is change management. You got to create a case for change management in every organization. And for that, you got to build a dynamic structure and a dynamic architecture of internal audit. And third is create an internal audit plan that focuses on value measurement, value creation, value retention, value enhancement. Your internal audit reports and function and aspect must focus on measurement because you can control only that aspect which can be measured. Anything that cannot be measured, you can't probably control. And then it has to also focus on accountability. If things are not moving as per the expected agenda, probably something needs to be done, and therefore accountability needs to be identified right in the beginning. So there's a lot of things which need to change. When I talk about internal audit transformation, it calls for a relook at your own functioning, at your own action agenda in terms of these three basic points. You got to link your plan with business value agenda. You got to build a business case for change, and your plan has to focus on value, measurement, and accountability. You must develop a risk-centric mindset. Companies in the top 20% risk maturity, those companies which have a highly matured risk management model, they generated 3 times the level of EBITDA as compared to those who were in the bottom 20% of the risk maturity. That means those companies which have realigned and looked at a risk-centric internal audit plan, they were able to deliver better financial performance, significantly better performance as compared to bottom 20% of the companies. You got to strengthen the risk coverage, including you got to be looking at risk of technology, risk of cyber attacks. You got to be looking at fraud. You got to help turn risks into results and therefore to be able to fuel better performance in future. When you look at performance management for the company, or decide and look at how do I add value to the business, you have to move beyond the financial perspective, which has been hitherto the traditional agenda of internal auditors. You also have to look at customer perspective, operations perspective, and people perspective. This is balanced scorecard, as we all understand. So your philosophy of internal audit has to move beyond only looking at the financial numbers, but you actually got to be looking at, are my customers satisfied with my products, with the services that my business is offering? Are they moving over to different companies? If they are doing so, why? How can I retain those customers within my fold? You got to be looking at operational perspective. Am I carrying out my various operations efficiently and effectively? If not, what needs to be done? I also got to be looking at, am I contributing positively to the society, to the people of this planet or not? So the focus has to be where the organization is going, futuristic outlook, rather than looking at where it has been, where it was in the past. That's what the financial audit does, carries out a statutory audit after the financial year comes to an end. But as an internal auditor, you've got to be actually looking at where the organization is going, and you have to develop and build up a futuristic outlook for the entire approach. And for that, you can effectively use financial modeling, computer-aided auditing techniques, data mining, data analytics, and of course, predictive analysis can be very, very useful in building up scenarios for futuristic outlook in internal audit. When it comes to corporate governance aspect, you got to review board structure. Companies that provides, and the SEBI guidelines also provide for a certain number of independent directors on the board of certain companies. But many of the companies have independent directors just for the namesake, just to tick the box, just to comply with the law. Otherwise, How independent is that person? You can very well find out by looking at the data of many of the boards of different companies. They are all directly, indirectly known, connected with promoters, owners of the business. You have to review code of conduct. You got to review board processes. What is the decision-making process? What is the information flow that's happening to the board? Is that adequate? Is that reliable? Is that timely or not? And then you have to also evaluate board performance. Of course, SEBI also has a mandatory requirement of board evaluation every year, at least for the listed companies, but internal auditor can also do that at his own end with a view to ensuring that board performance is as per the expectations. And then you have to also look at sustainability framework, ESG, environment, societal, governance. In every decision that the board takes, there has to be a framework of incorporating these three concerns: environment, society, and governance, and then help the company emerge as a good corporate citizen going forward. The recommendations of internal audit have to be smart. It's no point making generalized recommendations or such recommendations which may not be realistic, which may not be practical, which may not be implementable. Therefore, audit recommendations from the internal auditor, they got to be smart. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be actionable, they have to be realistic, and they have to be timely. Only then somebody will value the recommendations made by internal auditors. Otherwise, it will merely remain as part of the report and will not get into action. So what are the value attributes that people are looking at? Just a minute, please. So what are the value attributes that people are looking at? Internal auditors must develop leadership skills. They must develop subject matter knowledge. They continuously should update their knowledge. They must ensure resource utilization in an optimal manner. This is optimum resource utilization of internal audit team. This is what we are talking about. And then they must also ensure that audit process is efficient and effective. They must ensure that their audits are focused on adding value to the business and process improvement. They must focus on advisory function, and they must obviously make no mistakes while carrying out the audit. Their approach has to be Six Sigma principle. Their approach is required to be based on the demise of Six Sigma. So what is the summary? Our world has changed. The risk profile and dimensions of organizations have changed. Stakeholder expectations have changed. So what is the change required on the part of internal auditors? Raise the bar, live up to the heightened expectations of the stakeholders. The internal auditors have to raise the bar. They have to get up, geared up to meet the expectations of various users of internal audit function. They have to revisit internal audit purpose and position. They have to focus on risk and stakeholder expectations. Internal auditors must act as change agents. They have to facilitate positive change. They have to drive efficiency throughout the organization. It's not working hard that matters today. What matters is working smarter. Internal audit team must comprise of smart people, knowledgeable people. That means they should be able to attract and develop talent within the internal audit team. They must sharpen, internal auditors must sharpen communication skills so as to be able to effectively communicate both orally and in writing with various stakeholders. They must focus on continuous improvement, Kaizen. They must measure performance because only measurement helps in adding value to a particular function or a process. And then the entire process of internal audit has to be carried out, should be carried out based on the principles and tenets of objectivity, integrity, accountability, and independence. Internal audit must continuously assess how an organization's strategy, governance, performance and prospects lead to the creation of value over the short term, medium term, and long term. Creating value not only in the long term, that's what many of the companies focus on. We're looking at creating value long term, taking a 5-year, 10 years time frame. But then how will you ensure, how will you achieve that unless you have a progressive value creation agenda, which has to be moving from short term to medium term to long term going forward? There is a call for the internal auditors. The future of internal audit is now. There is huge demand for the internal audit skills, internal audit knowledge, and internal audit help the world over. Internal auditors need to put their act together so as to remain relevant to the business. Otherwise, there is a huge threat that they will be left behind. Nobody will value internal audit if the internal auditors don't decide to change the way they are expected to change in today's world. The message for internal auditors is loud and clear. You got to shape up or ship out. Either you stand up, you change yourself, you build up a new philosophy, a new action-oriented agenda in today's changing world and the changing expectation of various stakeholders from you, or else nobody will care about you. Nobody will look at you as part of the value-adding team for the company for that matter. The message is very clear: shape up or ship out. Thank you very much. That's where I end my thoughts and perspective. I'll be too pleased to handle a few questions during the Q&A session. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Shaktidhar Singh Saab, sir, your voice is not coming. Please unmute yourself. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Thank you, Gupta sir, for your nice presentation and deliberation on various aspects of changing dimension and attributes of internal audit. Now I would like to request CMA Ajay Wadhwa sir kindly address. Over to Wadhwa sir.
Thank you, Shaktidhar Singh Saab. First of all, thank you very much. You introduced me, but that time I was, muted, so I cannot, thank you personally. Anyhow, thank you very much, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Respected Chairman, Bhubaneswar Chapter, CMA Mukesh, sir. Some of my old friends, whom I am, their names are appearing on the screen, like Manas Lenka, sir, etc., etc. I was seeing the name of past president of our institute. I think now he's not there.
S.C. Mohanty sir.
Mohanty sir was there. So
Yeah.
my regards to Mohanty sir. My regards to Niranjan Mishra sir, Central Council member.
Both of them are here, sir. Both of them are present, sir.
Both of them are available now. So my regards to them. Then I am also seeing the name of CMA Devashish Saha, past chairman of EIRC.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's also there, sir.
Yeah. So some of my old friends are also appearing. So thank you very much for organizers, for the Bhubaneswar chapter people to inviting me and giving me an opportunity to deliberate my views on that topic. Mukesh sir, can you show me my presentation? Is it possible, or should I share it from my end?
Share, sir. You have to share, sir.
I have to share. Okay.
You share your screen. There it will be. You will get the command, sir. A option is there. Share screen.
Share screen, no, sir. Just a minute, sir.
Just do security in the side of security. Sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
I think it is visible, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
You can make it to slide in the mode of change the slide mode, sir. You can change it to slide mode.
Yeah.
So only this will be yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now it's clear, sir.
Okay. You see, the topic is changing dimension of internal audit. And I think most of the important points have already been covered by learned speaker Gupta Saab. I had heard a lot about Gupta Saab. Today I got a chance to listen him one to one. And thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. You know, your speech and your presentation was a great learning lesson for we people. Thank you very much, sir. Now, most of the points have been covered by Gupta Saab, but still some points are there which I would like to discuss with my learned friends, my cost accountants. I think definition etc. has been covered by Gupta Saab, and provisions under the Companies Act is old. We all know. I just come to my point, the points which I want to discuss with you. Basically, what I have been watching for the last few years, that these are some new emerging dimensions, and where the internal auditor has to take a call. He has to take very very strategic decisions. First of all, you remember when I was the student, Mukesh is very young. When I was the student, I remember uh, I was also working in an internal audit company, an internal audit firm. At that time, everything was available in hard copies. Hello, hello, yeah.
Yeah.
I am audible, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So everything was available in hard copy. So our job was easy. Just we would go there, we would collect the copies of accounts and whatever documents our auditor will provide us, and then we'll go for checking it. And hard copy was lying with the was with we people, and it was impossible for the auditee, the person whom we were auditing, to change the papers. But now things have changed. Computerized accounting has come, and it has increased the risk. So far auditor is concerned, statutory auditor, maybe financial auditor or cost auditor or internal auditor, the risk of auditing has increased manifold. So this is a very new emerging dimension. Then digital files, now all the files are digital. My daughter is working in ENY, and presently she is doing the audit of a multinational company from home. So that is, she is managing digital files and working from home. She is doing internal audit by sitting in home. By sitting at Ranchi, she is auditing the accounts of a California based multinational company. So work from home is a new phenomena, especially after after the spread of COVID-19. Now internal auditors are working from home. So this is a absolutely new dimension which we had never thought of. Cyber risk is there, disruptive technologies. Gupta sir was talking about disruptive technologies. They are also there, and trust and something more which I would like to discuss on. So let us talk one by one. First is computerized accounting. I think this change has taken place for the last few years. Now companies are not maintaining accounts in hard copies; they're maintaining in soft copies. I am working in a public sector, and we are also accounting. We are doing accounting, and we are maintaining papers in soft copy format. Rather, from March we have started e-office. I mean, all the files are moving here and there. All the files, official files, are moving from one person to another person in e-format. I mean, electronic format. So e-files are there. Now you see the problem of internal auditor. you know this June, after the end of this June, we started e-filing, using e-files from the month of March, after the spread of pandemic, when we were forced to work from home for few weeks, and then our office started. But still we are working from using in e-office. I mean, e-files are there. And after the first quarter, end of first quarter this year, our internal auditors came. By chance, he was my friend. I was talking to him that how to access that data. I think you will appreciate the problem of internal audit, that each and every officer of the company is dealing in e-office. They are getting files in electronic mode, and the problem is, hello, mic of somebody is, yeah. Now you try to understand the problem of auditors and the auditees. In this particular case, I was the auditee and my auditor has come. Now I was dealing with the e-files, and for opening and closing and writing, for dealing with IOI, I was given a specific password, ID and password, which I cannot share with anybody. Now my internal auditor was in a fix. He was really confused because files are there, but these files are e-files, and auditors have not been given access to these e-files. What I am requesting my auditor, that sir, you raise your problem, you raise your inquiry, you raise your requirement, and then I will provide you, I will give you the data as per requirement. Now I place myself in place of my internal auditor. What my auditing is giving me? The data, the paper which I am asking for. But there may be some data, there are some more data, there are some more papers which my auditing is not giving me to me, because I am internal auditor, because I am not aware of these papers, and I am not asking for, because these are in e formats and I am not having direct access to the file. So that is the major thing which came during the pandemic. I mean, papers are, e-papers are there, e-files are there, and it is very difficult for external auditor, like internal auditor, who are, they are government employees, but we are appointing them, either chartered accountant or cost accountant, and they are not having access, they are not neither having ID nor password to access our e-files. So they are getting very limited data, and they are getting very limited papers, and they have to take decision based on limited papers, limited access to the data. It means if they are being given half cooked data, how they will give full cooked food to our company? That is the major problem. That is a major problem. So now it is an emerging trend, because today it is coronavirus, tomorrow it may be new pandemic, or suppose there is no pandemic, but many companies are saying that now they will change, they will save the cost of maintaining the big offices, and they will allow most of their employees to work from home. I give the example of my daughter. She is working in EY, and her company has already told her to work from home till June, and she is heading internal audit team, which is doing the internal audit of a multinational company. It means now she will do the internal audit of that multinational company for the next one year, next 9 months or 1 year, at least 9 months to 1 year. Now she has to take decision. She has to submit a report based on the limited data which has been given to her by the company, because all files are computerized, all files are e-files, and these files, internal auditor does not have access to these files, due to because of ID, user ID and password is required, and companies are not giving full. My company is not giving. No officer is ready to share his ID and password with the internal auditor. And on the special request of auditors, a limited access has been given by our IT people. So this is emerging trend. This is really the emerging trend, and risk of internal auditor is increasing. He has to take a call. He has to take a decision. He has to make a report without getting full access to all the data. So that is a really challenge for internal auditors. Now, problem is, what are the solutions? What are the solutions? Based on my experience and whatever I have talked to my friends and my daughter, what I would like to suggest my friends, that if suppose you are doing the internal audit of a company in today's scenario, when the accounts are computerized, and you have not been given full access to the data, you ask for soft copies as well as hard copies. You ask for soft copies because if your client is working from home and you are also working from home, it is not possible to get all data in hard copy. So auditors should ask for data in soft copy, and they should keep all these soft copies date wise very carefully in their folder, in their either in pen drive or because I told you, I am telling you with my experience. I give you a real example. Suppose earlier I was working in a sales department, and I was using e-files for interacting with the customers. Now suppose some mistake has taken place. And customer is not a government company, it is a private company. So if I do a mistake with a private company, it will not be treated as mistake by the vigilance or CBI or any agency outside, they will always treat as a fraud. But so the correction of data was required. So I would advise my IT engineers to correct the data with backdoor entry. They will I think you are aware that in any software there are two ways of entering into software. One, right way, legal way, you enter into the software using ID and password. And another way of entering into software is backdoor entry. That can be done by IT engineers who has created and managing the software. So we would request our engineers, IT engineers, to make correction using backdoor entry. And sometimes they will oblige us. They will do this. Now suppose I am auditor. I have been given one set of data on one fine day in soft copy. After 2 or 3 days, my auditing make the changes in the data using software engineers and by using backdoor entry. What is the result? What is the risk? I have been given one set of data. Now data has been changed in the system itself. It means whenever I will submit my report, my data, my my proof and my record will not tally with the actual data which is appearing in the software of the company. And management will raise the question that you have not done. Management will raise the question on internal audit that your data is wrong. You are giving report based on wrong data. Management is not aware that his officer has used backdoor entry. IT engineer used IT engineer to make corrections in the data from backdoor, and this is a post facto sort of thing. I mean, correction is made after the actual transaction. So what I request, what I advise, I would like, based on my experience, what I would like to advise my my friends, cost accountants who are doing the internal audit job, that always keep soft copy record whatever has been provided by you by your client. Keep the soft copy date wise, so that on particular date. And I will give you one more I will give you one more advice that I have that has been that advice I have taken from my daughter. I will share with you. That is another. So solution is, that is now it's an emerging trend that companies are keeping e-files. And so we have to be very careful. As an auditor, we have to keep soft copies of all data and ask client to send data by email. Never accept data in your pen drive, because email has a record, email has a history. So whenever data is sent to you by email, that is more authentic, because email are being sent by the email IDs of clients, and you can always maintain the record of data which you have received through email. And dates, screen sharing. Nowadays, another solution is screen sharing. I have seen my daughter, when she was doing the internal audit of that UK based, USA based company, she was always asking my client, her client, to share the screen. And whenever screens were shared, screenshots were being being recorded. Screenshots were being stored for future reference. So what I want to say, what I want to share with you, that first is, now the data and hard copy, the era, that age has gone, that period has gone. Now companies will go for more data in e-formats, and I think the job of internal audit has become very difficult. They have to use all sort of these things to I will take the questions. If you have suppose I am not able to explain this point very carefully, I will take the question. But this is first emerging trend, that now internal auditor are not supposed to deal with hard copies. They are supposed to deal with soft copies and e-offices which have limited access available to internal auditor. So second problem which I was noting down when I was facing my internal auditor, that I was not giving him full file, because you see, all files are digital and files can only be accessed by using my my ID and my password. What I was doing, I was on the request of auditor, I was giving him access using my ID, but I was giving him very limited access. Now you try to understand the problem of internal auditor. Traceability of whole file was very difficult for him. Very difficult. I remember 3 or 4 years back when we were not having, digital file or e-filing system or e-file system, we were giving full file, hard copy to my internal auditors. And what they were doing, they were checking, they were, auditing the whole file. Their assistants, they were going through all the pages of the file. And some pages used to give them some clues so that they can take a holistic decision. But now what I am doing, I am maintaining e-files and I am not allowing my internal audit the full access of my whole file. I mean, my internal auditor is not having access to my file. What he is getting, only limited information which I am giving to him. So his job is becoming more difficult. So again, my suggestion is that it is my personal suggestion, and I think it can be implemented. As an internal auditor, if I go for doing internal auditor of a company where files are maintained in the electronic format, I will ask always, internal auditor should always ask the company bosses to provide them auditor's version of e-files. Means what internal auditor, what my internal auditor was committing mistake, he was trying to access my file using my ID. That is wrong, because I will never allow him. I am client. Why I will attract the negative remarks from internal audit? I will never would like to invite the negative remarks of my internal auditor. So what I will do, I will give him limited access, that I told you just before. My suggestion, if my auditor comes, or suppose as an auditor, if I suppose tomorrow I join practice and I go to a company for doing the internal audit of e-files, what I will ask, the company, my client, to create the whole file in another where, I mean, create a new file. The whole file should be converted into auditor's version, and that file should be given to me. I will audit the data of that file. If you have given me incomplete version of incomplete file, you have given me incomplete data, my report will be based on that incomplete data. That will be in public domain. Everybody would be able to know that auditor has audited whatever he has been given. So my advice, I know companies will refuse. Companies will not, because it will increase the job of company. It will increase the job of IT engineers. But I was talking to 2 or 3 my chartered accountant friends a few weeks back, and we were of the opinion that in this era, when the companies are using electronic files and they are not giving us full access, I will always request my client to create auditor version, I mean duplicate another version of that file, and give that file to me for auditing. I will not be able to make any changes in that file, but at least I will have access to the data. And if I will able to prove, in case I suppose in later period of later after some time, if I am charged that I have not done my job carefully, I have not given a good report, and despite internal audit some fraud or some misappropriation of fund or some mistake has taken place, I will be able to give proof that I have audited whatever I was given. And second is screen sharing, because nowadays I just saw the way my daughter was doing the internal audit of that American company. She was my client, her client, he was sharing the screen of his files with my daughter. So my daughter was doing, she was saving all the screen sharing. She was having access to the data whatever has been shared, and she was making copy of that data to avoid any future dispute with the customer in negligence during the internal audit job. So screen sharing is another solution of this problem. So my advice to my friends that again, it is a new dimension. Now companies are maintaining e-files, and always, I know this is a new thing. I don't know whether this has been thought of earlier or not, but always ask your client to create. If the client is maintaining e-files, always ask your clients to give you auditor version of e-files, because he will never give you access to his original files, e-files. So always ask him to give you auditor version or another copy of e-files, so that you I mean, you should have you can always prove, you can always certify, after the internal audit, that you have audited whatever you have been given. Now a new thing has come up. I think you are aware, that is SharePoint audit logs. SharePoint audit logs allow us to uh, log. I mean, I have noted down, and you can read it. You can read the screen. Now, this is a new thing, and it. I cannot, make you understand this, using my words. It is a practical thing, and which I can show you if if given a chance and any other point of time. I will show you that how this log is work. How does this log works? This log is a new thing, and now it is becoming very popular. And all the big four, their internal auditors are using this audit logs to audit internal audit, to do the internal audit job of their clients. It will help you. It will help you to understand the problem of clients, and second, you will be able to prove later on that whatever files were given to you, you have audited only those files. If it means, if client is not giving you access to any file, you will be able to prove that since that file was not given to you, you were not able to audit those data or those papers. So SharePoint audit log is a very, I think, I request, Bhubaneswar chapter is a very vibrant chapter of our institute. I would like to request the chairman of the CMA Mukesh sir, that you can organize a separate WEBINT on this audit logs, and I think it will be very useful for the members. It is a very practical sort of thing. You just today Google, I think you are aware, sir, but suppose if you want to know more, you just Google audit logs, and I can give you the experts or speakers, and they will make our members understand the audit logs. That is very useful tool nowadays available to internal auditors or any type of auditors. Whatever I know about audit logs, what I have learned from my daughter, that I have shared with you. And if if time permits, I can give you some practical aspect also. Now, cyber risk, I think it has been discussed by Gupta Sahab in detail. Auditors are facing this problem, internal auditors are facing this problem, but I think it has been discussed by Gupta Sahab. Disruptive technologies, again, this this new emerging trend has been discussed and has been discussed in detail by Gupta Sahab. So I think I am not supposed, I should not talk over all these things. Now come to some practical problems nowadays, with the practical problems which are emerging. You see, I think I am taking clue from one of the point of Gupta Sahab. Gupta Sahab was telling that the auditor should come out their comfort zone, and they should make a report which should be useful for the clients. You see, now suppose I give you example of my internal auditors. My internal auditors came in the month of July for auditing of first quarter, and then they came in a month of October for the audit of second quarter. And what they did, my auditors just bringing a questionnaire, same questionnaire which they have been using for the last 2-3 years. They have been using this questionnaire for the last 2-3 years. They were coming with the questionnaires, they were asking questions. Suppose during Corona, they were not coming physically, they were asking question over telephone. And based on my reply, they were ticking, either writing yes or no, either they were ticking or they were, ticking yes or ticking no. And they were submitting this report to our management. I am heading two department of CCL. And when the audit reports, internal audit reports of my department came to me, believe me, I found them as a garbage, no use. They have asked questions from me in the pre-written questionnaire, pre-written format. They have just ticked and submit the report to me. That is useless for me. Whatever they have ticked, that is already known to me or to my my colleagues who are helping me in running the department. That report is adding no value to my department, to my company. What I want to share with you, I am taking clue from the speech of Gupta Saab, that please avoid this type of questionnaire. Now time has come. The companies are facing a lot of auditors. They are facing a different type of auditors. Statutory auditor is coming, then cost auditors are coming, then internal audit is coming, system audit is coming, stock audit, store audit. Now then CAG is coming. They are fed up with the audit. They want solid audit. They want that auditor should give them something solid, something very fruitful, something should be productive. My advice with you people, that now try to avoid, because I know. I can give you one more example. When my daughter was auditing a particular company, that company raised a very valuable question during the audit discussion, that how your report will add value in my company. It is an era of value addition. If your company is not adding value, you are finished. So your report, your internal audit, but your report should add value to my company. It should enhance the value of my company. So that is my advice to my friends, cost accountant friends, that come out of comfort zone. Go for internal audit, but don't make a questionnaire. Questionnaire, you make questionnaire, but just for your help. But when you submit your report should add some value to the company. You should highlight some points. I can try to make you explain. I can try to make you understand with cost audit of this point with my cost audit. My company is appointing cost auditor. Mohanty Sahab was also a cost auditor of my company. He was lead cost auditor of my company. My company has been appointing cost auditor since 1st April 2012. Now many cost auditors are coming, lead cost auditor, branch cost auditors are coming. Some of them, what we were doing, they were coming and they were submitting their reports within 2 or 3 days. And believe me, that report was not any useful for my company. When Mohanty Sahab, I am taking the name of Suresh Mohanty Sahab, when he was auditing, my audit officers were very alert that Mohanty Sahab was raising very tough question. The same principle applies on internal audit. We should justify our appointment. So my advice is raise tough questions. Although Gupta Sahab is very much right that we are not bloodhound, we are watchdog. But at least our report should highlight some portions of weakness of the company. We should ensure that my report, internal audit report, should add value to the company. That is the reason. Avoid formats. You see, why? What is the demerit of using formats? Why we use formats? When suppose I am boss of a particular department, okay, and I am employing 2 or 3 accountants. Now I do not trust the ability of my accountants. I do not trust. So what I will do, I will give them format. First I will make a format, develop a format in 1 or 2 days, and then I will give my accountant this format that you go and just fill the formats and give me the report. When I give formats to my accountants, my subordinates, my colleagues, junior colleagues, it means I am not trusting their intelligence. I am having doubt on their intelligence. I am thinking that they are not very competent and they will not be able to develop the figures. They will not be able to make the reports. So first I am giving them format. Formats are given to people who are not very intelligent, who are just copier, who can fill the formats. So when we use the formats, already pre-printed formats for auditing, internal audit, It means we are questioning our own intelligence. So my advice, never use formats. Use formats for your internal papers. But whenever you make report, you make a detailed report, elaborative report, descriptive report. Your report should be descriptive. You should describe all the problems and all the loopholes of the system to the management, so that management should take corrective action. So your report should be, because nowadays the problem is that the companies take internal audit job very granted, and they do not give internal audits a long period for auditing. The data is increasing, number of data is increasing. Now, in place of hard copies, they are using soft copies, so access to data is limited, and they are giving very less time to auditors. So in this less time, we have to give productive report, useful report. So my suggestion is that whatever you do, there is a very famous line from a very famous author, that if we salute our job, we are not required to salute anybody, but if you pollute our job, we are required to salute everybody. We should salute our job, and we should give a descriptive, detailed report to the management. In a nutshell, I would like to adjust that your time is short. Don't use formats. Give report in detail. One another problem which is coming, which I was facing in my department for the last 6 months. My auditors were auditing my records, whatever records I was providing them online, and network was a huge problem. So this is another new dimension. Now auditors are auditing. My daughter is auditing the accounts of a California-based company by sitting at India in Ranchi in Jharkhand. So network is a major issue. Many of times network is not working. So it is another major issue. I don't have any solution to this problem, but of course this is a new emerging trend, that now quality of audit will depend upon the quality of network also. I think we should always choose good network. That is another thing. One more thing, sir, which I would like to discuss with you people, that whatever is happening nowadays, which my auditors, what they did, they submitted the report, and from that day, they didn't come to meet me or to management. What I would like to advise you, that make your report in detail, and before submitting your report, please have a meeting with the management, general manager, director finance, even chairman or members of audit committee. Do have a meeting with those people, and you first submit your draft report to them. Your draft, many times internal auditors think that if we create problem for our clients, they will create problems for me and they will not give me appointment next time. My advice is, never think so. Never think so. Because now all the companies, usually government companies, they cannot choose their internal auditors. The modality of giving auditing job is fixed. They cannot make any changes in that modality. You may be a trouble creator auditor for your company, but if you are having required number of points, you are fulfilling the criteria. Nobody, I am working in a government sector, we cannot reject an auditor because he was raising a tough question. No, it is impossible. We have to follow certain modality. So now you raise tough questions and do have a meeting with the management, because I am sharing with you, many times my senior management thinks that internal auditor, oh, they will come, they will just submit some questionnaire, they will submit the format, they will fill the format, and they will submit the report to head of the internal audit department, and that report will be useless and nobody is going to open the report. No, you should have a meeting, because if you submit report, the chances are that the management is not going to read that report. So please have a meeting, and in that meeting you try to convey all your your decisions, whatever you have noted down, important points. You try to convey these points to the management and ask them to give you reply. Now this is your, because you are not a statutory auditor, management may not give you reply, But if they don't give you reply, just mention them in your report. So my advice is that give your report, draft report first, have a meeting with the management. Do have a meeting. It will increase your importance. It will increase your importance, because in most of the companies, the managing directors are not finance men. They do not understand the importance of internal audit. They think that internal audits are just, well, they are having very careless approach to internal audit. You have to make yourself important. So have a meeting with them. They are bound to have meeting, because you have not been appointed by choice. They are having no choice. They have appointed you internal audit because they have been asked to do so by the under Companies Act. So they have to follow, they have to appoint you. They don't have any choice. So they cannot avoid you. Have a meeting, convey your message, talk to them, and then submit your report. It will increase the value of a report. At least top management will come to know about your report, and you will feel satisfaction that whatever your points were there, you have discussed with them. So friends, this was my presentation. Actually, I wanted to discuss some disruptive technology, etc., cyber risk, but I thought Mr. Gupta has already covered it. Gupta Sahab has covered all these points very nicely. So that is the reason I didn't. So these are some emerging trends according to me: e-filing, electronic filing, work from home, auditing from home. This is a very new trend. So we should be. And one more thing, try to update yourself with all these new technologies. Like somebody was, Mukesh sir is young, but I am old. I am 55 years old. But I cannot, as an auditor, I cannot take a plea that since I'm an old man, so I am not aware of new technologies, so I cannot, audit your company very carefully. I cannot never take this plea. So always, the message is AAA, lifelong learning. Always keep yourself updated. If you want to compete in this world, if you want to succeed in this world, always keep yourself updated with latest technologies. I gave you the example of this audit logs. Keep yourself audited with updated with audit logs. Is a thing of future. It is a thing of future. So my request to all cost audit accountants, that if you want to become a successful internal auditor, update yourself with audit logs. These are new technologies, and this will help you. So I think my time is over. Allotted time to me is over. Thank you once again. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to discuss whatever was coming in mind. I shared with you. I am not as learned as Gupta Sahib is, but I try to share my practical views with you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your nice word and wonderful presentation and detailed deliberation of emerging dimension of internal audit. As suggested, sir, we will definitely do the program on audit logs.
Yeah.
We will take your help, sir. Now, sir, the house is open for interaction. There are so many questions, queries in the chat box. Sir, first question is why internal auditors don't enjoy special status in comparison to external auditors in most of the corporate sectors, though they work like the watchdog. Professor Subhash Chandra Sahu, HOD Commerce, UGS Mahavidyalaya, Secretary.
I think both of us can respond to that. My take is that it is up to the internal auditors to make or break their stature or position in the profession as well as in the company. Why people are probably taking their job not so seriously and not giving them due importance is not because of the effect of any law or regulation, but it's only because most of the internal audit reports do not actually create any value for the organization, and that's why people have somehow built that kind of notion in their mind. So going forward, you have to create a stature and position of yourself by coming out with value-adding jobs or value-adding internal audit reports. Then slowly and slowly, you'll be able to build up your own trust, your own acceptability, and your own stature in the company. That's my take. Wadhwa sir can further add.
Sir, I support you, sir. I was just talking my experience. I was sharing my experience.
Yeah.
I am heading two departments, sir. My internal audit submitted me the report, and not a single line was new for me.
Absolutely.
So I was already aware of all these things. So internal audit should be value addition. We have to work hard, and we have to make our report useful for the management. At least 1 or 2 points, two new things should be there, so that management should understand that report is important. It will add value, and it will increase the knowledge, increases the value. So report should be knowledgeable.
Absolutely.
Sure. Then another question is, the internal auditor plays a key role to ensure effectiveness in risk management, internal control system, and governance process of an organization, which is expected by board of directors. Now, how the internal auditor are effective in giving value to their work in changing working environment of digital transformation and remote working culture in a organization?
This is what Wadhwa sir talked about. Sir, you can further elaborate on this point, sir. The whole presentation was focused on this aspect only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You see, again, I'm repeating 2 or 3 lines. That now, companies are, many officers of company are working from home. And I think now this will continue, because many companies are able to, save a lot of cost, office rent, etc. And they have found that yes, most of the work can be done from home.
Right.
I am giving my example. Most of the files which I am dealing in my office can be dealt by me sitting in my, in my home, using my e-office. So now files are e-files and people are working in e-office. This will increase the complications for the internal auditor.
Right.
Because they are also sitting in home, or if they are coming to the office, they are not having any access to physical files. They are having access only to electronic files. And access to electronic files is only possible through ID and password. And no auditee will share this with the auditors. They will only share the information which will be asked for by the auditors. So my suggestion to, in this case scenario, whatever question has been asked, my reply will be that as an internal auditor, first we should ask for a duplicate version of auditor version. I will not call it duplicate version. Auditor version. It is a new concept. It is a new concept. I will ask my client that how many files you are dealing with. Suppose during the quarter, my office has dealt with 33 e-files. I will advise my client that you create auditor version of all these 33 files, and all you please send me these files through email, so that I should have a record that these files have been given me officially. And if they make any changes in any of the file, then I will have a proof that changes was not communicated to me. And I will internal audit those 33 files, and then I will submit my report, a very useful report. I will try to create my report useful. And if in future management says, no, you have not given a correct report, your report was incomplete, then I will able to prove that whatever auditor version file was given to me, my report was based on only on those files. So ask for screen sharing is another, screen sharing. Then audit logs, that is a new version. I think Gupta sir will be aware. Audit log is new phenomena. So
very new phenomena.
Yeah. So these things will help you in this scenario.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then another is, do the internal auditors nowadays understand the SAP e-office digital billing process of an organization before making their audit plan? What is your advice to us how they can overcome the above challenges in understanding the system, so that they can effectively understand the organization system in line with its goal to give their view effectively?
So as the organizations are moving towards digitization and electronically managing the entire information flow, so obviously the internal auditors have to keep themselves abreast with the developments taking place in the ERP, SAP, Oracle, and all these fintech, financial related technologies, so that they can carry out effective internal audit. Our institute has also launched a few courses in this line. I think they are running a SAP course as well as there is a fintech course also. But otherwise, you have to look for other institutions or other places from where you can develop these techniques and skills. But these are very, very essential for you to be an internal auditor future and be effective in future.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. There is no any queries in the chat box.
Okay.
So I would like to request CMA Ajay Kumar Samal, Secretary of ICAI Bhubaneswar chapter, to give the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar. Respected our most distinguished speaker of the day, CMA Edi Wadhwa sir and CMA Dr. S.K.Gupta sir. Respected Chairman sir, our beloved Shakti sir, honorable members, and our most valued invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of the ICAI Bhubaneswar chapter and the entire CMA fraternity, here together extend a very heartfelt gratitude to the speaker for sharing with us the findings and opinions in today's WEBINT, Changing Dimension of Internal Audit. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to CMA Edi Wadhwa sir and CMA Dr. S.K. Gupta sir for sharing with us some of the best presentation. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us by sharing very informative, qualitative, and attractive inputs with regard to internal audit. I request on behalf of Bhubaneswar chapter to Ajay Wadhwa sir to guide in conducting WEBINT on the audit log. I would also like to thank our beloved chairman sir, CMA Mukesh sir, for his moral support and guidance. My deepest sense of appreciation and would place record my hearty thanks to Chairman PD Committee, CMA Shaktidhar Singh sir, for whom we made this WEBINT. I convey my cheerful thanks to all the untouchable participants who have participated awesomely and turned up in such great numbers. I would also like to extend thanks to all chairmen and their team members of other chapters at Odisha for their associations. I am happy to express vote of thanks to our staff members for their effort. Thank you all for your cordial cooperation. We hereby close the session. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Namaskar, sir.
It was a
Good
pleasure
night.
interacting with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, sir.
Now we conclude.
We are signing off.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Right, sir.